Today we continue our look at the Showa-era Kamen Riders SH FIguarts releases, this time with Kamen Rider 2. Kamen Rider 2 debuted in the original Kamen Rider series after Kamen Rider 1 left to fight Shocker, which had spread to the rest of the world. And after that, Rider 2, Ichimonji Hayato, took over the role of Kamen Rider to defend Japan. So, of course, we are taking a look at Kamen Rider 2 as the second rider in the series, because he is Kamen Rider 2. It's literally in his name. He is the second rider. Now, Kamen Rider 2 is relatively similar to Kamen Rider 1 in power set and design, but he is different in character. Ichimonji Hayato is a lot different than Hongo Takashi. And Kamen Rider 2 did come in to fight Shocker after Rider 1 needed to travel to Europe to fight the evils of Shocker in that country. Rider 2 was in charge of protecting Japan for quite a while until Rider 1 appeared again, and then they became the Double Riders. Now, we'll be taking a look at the SH FIguarts release of Kamen Rider 2 in his Shin Nigo form, and that, of course, is very similar to the Shin Ichigo form, a powered-up form that was received later in the series and is what is used in the crossover movies. Now, this one has the head that is similarly colored to Shin Ichigo, as opposed to the darker colored version that some specials and TV crossovers have done. But without further ado, let's look at Kamen Rider 2. Alright, taking a look at Kamen Rider Shin Nigo. It is very similar to Shin Ichigo in that the difference mainly is the gloves and boots are red instead of silver, and the stripe along the side of the body is a single stripe as opposed to a double stripe. Always a bit confusing why Nigo, Rider 2 had a single stripe while Ichigo Rider 1 had a double stripe. Whatever the reason is, I'm sure there is one. It is distinctive to each rider. So, with that said, quality control wise, I do have this problem of this leg joint. If you notice, every time I set this guy down, put him in a leg, this leg joint is kind of loose. His hip right here is very loose, and it's been that way since I got the figure. I really hope that's been corrected on the recent re-release of Shin Nigo, but yeah, it is a slight problem. But other than that, the figure does look fantastic. It is the same head sculpt as Shin Ichigo Rider 1. There really isn't a whole lot new to this figure outside of the boot and glove color and then the stripe style and slight accessory change. He is relatively the same. He has the same articulation. He has the same, pretty much has the same accessories. He is relatively the same figure. So why would you want to get a figure that's mostly the same? Well, because it is a different character. And Rider 2 here is, well, Rider 2. He has a different henshin pose. He can pull off his henshin pose. They've made sure the articulation allows for that, which is fantastic because, you gotta make sure the articulation and hands match, or else your SH FIguarts Agito not being able to pull off any pose. So, accessories-wise, what does he have? In terms of hand, Shin Nigo has the same hand set as Rider 1, except he does get an extra thumb-curled-in posing hand for his henshin pose. Now, unfortunately, he does not come with anything else aside from, well, a scarf piece and a duplicate of the Rider Kick effect piece that came with Rider 1. No new Shocker weapon, that would have been nice. So here's the question. What is the purpose to SH FIguarts Rider 2? From everything we've seen so far, he is Rider 1 with new glove and boot color, and has an extra hand, but is lacking a Shocker weapon. Really, from an action figure standpoint, he's not as good as Rider 1, because he doesn't have as many poses, because he doesn't have that Shocker weapon. But, at the same time, he is as good as Rider 1, because he's the same exact figure. This is the thing, the early designs for Riders 1 and 2, they're very similar, and the SH FIguart does replicate that. Things that would have helped this, though, would have been nice if we could have gotten the darker Rider 2 helmet as an alternate head, as seen on this Forza Astro Switch. It would have been nice to see this as a FIguart, because as of currently, I don't believe that head is available as an alternate head for this guy. So, I felt like that would have made him a little bit more distinctive, as you could have had him have a different helmet color. But other than that, he is basically Rider 2, Rider 1 with different gloves and stripe color. So, who would I recommend this to? Well, I'd said this is an instant pickup for fans of Ichimonji Hayato. But outside of that, would a Kamen Rider fan want to get this? Well, if you're trying to collect every Kamen Rider, or at least every main Rider, he's definitely a necessity for that. But what makes this guy really special? What makes him a Figuart worth having? Well, you kind of need to have Rider 1 to complete the team. Because Rider 2 is at his best when he's teamed up with Rider 1, in terms of action figures purely. If you have both of these guys, things get a little more awesome. Double Rider Kick. This is the reason you get Kamen Rider 2. It's to do cool things with Rider 1. Now, while Kamen Rider 2 is his own character in his own right, basically, Hayato Ichimonji is cool. Hongo Takeshi is cool. The two of them teaming up together is the most awesome thing. Like, all these years later, it's so cool to see the Double Riders back to fight evil again. So by no means is Kamen Rider 2 a bad SH Figuart. In fact, he's quite great, because he is based on the Shin Ichigo body mold. Now, they have released an old version of Rider 2, which does have a new head sculpt, I might add. And I would recommend that one if you're wanting a little bit more variety to your Ichigo and Nigo. But if you want a Rider 2 to complement a Rider 1, get Shin Nigo to go with Shin Ichigo. Simple as that. These are the Double Riders as we see them today, and I feel as if the Shin forms are their most recognizable. Now, Rider 2, like I said, has been released separately again to match his new Cyclone getting a separate release. You do not have to get the new Cyclone to get Nigo. You only have to do that to get Ichigo now. But I would recommend to get him, especially if you do like Rider 2 more than Rider 1. I know there are people out there that are like that. And it is still a good figure. It just may be a little bit more limited than Ichigo. But what I would really recommend, don't split up the Double Riders. Keep them together, as the Double Riders really work best as being two Figuarts working together as opposed to one standing alone. And honestly, it's how I recommend buying them. Get both Ichigo and Nigo, whether it's the two old versions or the two Shin versions. I feel as though owning one without the other is just kind of wrong, and you shouldn't do that. Definitely get both Ichigo and Nigo in whatever form you wish. Overall, Rider 2 is a great Figuart, and especially with Rider 1, it makes two of the coolest figures that are on my shelf. And stay tuned, as next week we'll be looking at the very victorious Kamen Rider, Kamen Rider V3. Until then, this is Soundout saying goodbye.